We got 415. Actually, I should probably give this to you. It's Grant Township here.
It's been waiting for weeks for this.
That's right.
I've heard nothing.
All right, I'll even give you this to bang the gavel on here so you realize how out of line I was. Oh, cinnamon? That's cinnamon? Nah, I got this to eat. I'll ruin the chocolate. Oh gosh, I got my mic on.
Of course. Get one of these, Rocky. I don't think so. Did I give you one? I saw it. I'll take another one, I guess.
Michelle, can you hear us?
Yeah,
I think this is Grant Township.
Now paging Michelle. Michelle, come in.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Thank you. I will call this meeting to order of the Grant Township meeting. Nice to see so many people show up for the Grant Township meeting. In all seriousness, this is scheduled 15 minutes before the regular supervisor meeting, so we just have some business to take care of. Item A is approval of the agenda. Any questions on the agenda?
I'll move it.
Second.
Second. Motion by Radig. Hearing no discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item B is approval of the minutes of the May 10th Grant Township meeting. Oh, excuse me. Yes, being as our clerk is not present, we need to appoint a temporary. And so I'll move to appoint Michelle Scaff joining us by the phone for this meeting. Second by Radig. Rocky. Hearing no discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item B is now approval of the minutes of the May 10th Grant Township meeting. Any corrections or questions? Hearing none, I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion by Young, second by Radig. Hearing no discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item C is approval of the claims. We have one from Grinnell Mutual for a commercial package policy. Anything else to note, Michelle?
Nope, this would be the annual normal claim that they've, it's been late the last few years, so this year they'll get paid on time.
Very good.
I'll move it.
Because they are served by the Woodbury County Board of Supervisors in our official and personal capacities. You'll move it?
Yep.
Second. Motion by Radig, second by DeWitt. Hearing no discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those say nay. Passes 5-0. Item D is approval of the FY22 annual financial report. Michelle, what are we looking at?
Okay, so this report is required to be submitted annually to the auditor by September 30th. It lists all of the revenue and expenses for the Grant Township for fiscal year 22. So you can see it separated on the first page by cemetery in one column and fire and EMS, which are the budget categories that we budget for. You can see all the expenses that have occurred. We did the extra payments to both fire departments as requested per their needs. And the ending balance is at the bottom. Total balance in the bank is $34,358.58. And this document would need to be signed by all trustees, aka board members, and the clerk.
And Michelle is authorized to sign as the clerk, being temporarily appointed. Okay. Any questions? Trustees?
Second.
Motion by Radig, second by DeWitt. Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item E is Township Citizen Concerns. I know you all have traveled far from Grant Township to address the board on your concerns.
Might actually have somebody from Grant here today.
We might, if they know their township. Hey! All right, well, we're fully represented, so hearing no concerns, move on to item F, which is Township Trustee Concerns. Anyone speaking?
I believe there's no change in those concerns.
Yes?
You'd
Lack
like to
thereof.
run for township trustee next time around? Oh, okay.
We're actively seeking candidates to replace us as township trustees. Hearing no other concerns. Well, Mr. Chair, it's been an honor to be chair temporarily of the Grant Township meeting. I will recess this until 4:30.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.
Is the feedback the phone?
It may have been.
Okay.
Because she's off the phone now, right? Oh, she is, okay. She might be muted or something, because there's no feedback. Does she want to sing us a song, or a couple songs?
Do we have more than one line that people can call in? Do you have two? Thank you.
You'll have another lifetime to be honest.
Is there a little placard on there? Is there a little placard on the desk?
Press. Is there any press here? Which one do you want up there?
Do you want to come up? You know that's reserved for somebody next to you.
Sat there before.
How are you? We actually have a seat here if you want. It says press. I don't think we've ever used it, but okay. Well, it's open if you like it. Okay.
I gave you one of these. I gave Matt two of them. Who were the two upstairs? The two. Who were the two people that were upstairs in the meeting? The residents.
Down here?
We still going on the fireside?
How long did you process?
I'm doing the 20 fiscal year. Our fiscal year's June or July to July.
How'd your classes go?
I'm doing 24s.
I mean, teach meetings. Good? At least you made it.
No, it'll be reviewed by council.
Great. So what?
We just started.
Hey, Dan Heritage called. He said there's been a train that's blocking traffic down in Sioux City for like 15 minutes. Yeah. He said so a lot of people might be waiting. I just so you know, Dan won't be here for a while. Like for 20 minutes now, it's been blocking all the downtown. Yeah.
Hi, Gordy.
Liz, how
I
you
haven't
doing?
seen you for a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Mic check. You guys do a mic check already? Check 1, 2, 3.
Couple people stuck behind the train, like Mark Nelson and Dan, so just let you know.
We aren't selling anything. Yeah, all right.
.30. 4:30, we're going to call the meeting to order. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the And now we're going to join together in a moment of silence. Thank you. Item 1 on the agenda is citizen concerns. Anything to be heard that is not already on the agenda? All right, seeing nothing. Moving on to approval of the agenda. We're going to remove item 7. I'll move that without item 7.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Taylor. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving on to the consent agenda. Items 3 through 6 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Item 3 is the approval of the minutes of the August 9th, 2022 meeting. Item 4 is approval of claims. I did get a note from Finance to remove a $22.50 claim from M&M Copyquick. So,
The reason for removal is has changed hands and they need to fill a new tax form, also addresses. So we need to pull it back and do it with the new owners.
so I'll have that in the claims. Thank you. Item 5 from Board Administration, approval of resolution thanking and commending Marilyn Milbrod for her years of service with Woodbury County. Item 6 from Human Resources, approval of memorandum of personnel transactions. I will move the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. That ends the consent agenda. Item 7, of course, is removed. Item 8 from Human Resources, approval of memorandum of understanding addressing CWA Local 7103, secondary roads employees.
Melissa Thomas, Human Resources Director, and the board requested me to seek an MOU for raising the CWA secondary roads wages from ARPA funds, 4%. I've attached the MOU, and I'm asking for your approval.
I'll move it.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Taylor. Any discussion? Did you get a chance to review it there as well, Joshua?
No, since it was a union matter, it was the outside attorney that assisted Melissa.
All right. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Going to move on to item 10A, receive bids for propane FY 2023 and return them to county engineer for review and recommendation.
Mark Nair, Woodbury County Engineer. Bids for, just counting to make sure I get them all. Looks like we have 3 bids for propane.
Propane's never been hotter.
First bid is for, from New Co-op, Fort Dodge, Iowa. $1.55 per gallon. Last year's price was $1.10. Next bid is from Sapp Brothers. $1.94 per gallon. The final bid is from Johnson Propane. They bid $1.72 per gallon. I recommend award of the bid to
New Co-op.
New Cooperative for $1.55 a gallon.
All right, so that's item.
First you have to receive that.
Yeah, I'll move to receive.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Taylor. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. I'll move to award to New Co-op at the $1.55.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Taylor. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. We can go ahead with the calcium chloride here. Item C is receive bids for calcium chloride 2023 and return them to county engineer for review and recommendation.
The first one is from Jericho just gave me a zip code, so I can't tell you where they're from off the top of my head. Last year's price was $474 per ton. Jericho Services bid is $498 per ton.
498?
Pardon?
498, you said?
$498, yes. Next one is from Mark's Distribution, Sioux City. They bid $1,092 per ton. Next up is Double Seals. Skywood Industries bids $598 per ton, $598.
How many did you have, Mark?
4.
Okay.
Getting to the 4th one now. Looks like I've got about 2 minutes.
Depending on which clock we're using.
I'll even have time to give her a letter opener back. Final bid is from Perk Products and Chemical Company, $600 per ton. I recommend award to Jericho Services for $498.
I'll move to receive, or motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. I'll move the award to Jericho for $498 a ton.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank
Might
you.
as well not go very far.
Yeah. Well, you can start, I guess, the public hearing is item B, so we can receive a county staff report as A, 9A.
There's also one for Pat there. We're up, Dan. Since last week's meeting, we've continued to evaluate the information that is out there and try to address some of the questions that came up in the first hearing. As far as my part of the presentation, one of the concerns that was expressed last week was about road damage. I think we have adequate response and planning built into our current ordinance that requires that haul roads be declared, the roads get taken care of by the operator during the time they're working there. They place dust control out in front of residences, and then they confine their operations to those roads designated as haul roads. I think there's adequate information in our current ordinance for protecting the county road system.
So just for the good of the public, we're talking about a staff report on wind energy generation ordinance. Is that-
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
just,
And that is part of the ordinance, is there is a provision in there for road agreements.
I just want to make sure the public is aware of what staff report is being discussed.
All right, yeah, I thought Keith had launched me, so I just had.
He
to write
had,
in
just
the
wanted to
report.
clarify for the good of the
All right.
cause.
I've also continued to look at research that's out there for setbacks. I guess I've started to narrow it down and focus in on a couple of the more recent studies on minimum safe distance. They have different ways of evaluating what that routine or tolerable risk is for thrown rotor fragments or thrown ice, those type things. Most of what I'm finding is that the thrown rotor fragments fly farther than what the ice would. So any consideration you look at for setbacks to protect residences and buildings from fragments that would be thrown off of a rotor would protect from ice as well, I guess, long story short. The studies that are most current, that build on the physics of the situation with the radial energy created by a wind generator, if it were to fly apart and begin to throw things, basically encourage a 3 to 3.5 times the total tower height, so that's base to tip, from the nearest residence. In the case of the proposed 591-foot towers that were mentioned last week by Mid-American, that would put that setback at 2,068 feet. I guess I throw out for board consideration, as you're looking at setbacks in this ordinance again, you could consider a setback of 3.5 times tower height instead of going with a specific distance. That could save having to have another of these debates as the size of towers grows. You could also add a minimum setback if you found that necessary as well to take care of shorter towers so that you can maintain a certain setback from residences in that case. You know, if we had a very small tower, 100-foot, where if we didn't have that minimum, you could end up with somebody inside of 600 feet. I don't see those kind of towers going in anymore, considering the investment it takes to actually build one. But the board could add a minimum to that, and I just throw out that 3.5 times tower height as what I would recommend that the board consider as you move forward with this discussion.
Yeah, and I would basically, from the zoning perspective, concur what Marcus said with that 3.5 being a prudent balance. Go ahead.
I guess that's what staff has to offer. Keith?
So, Mr. Chair, in terms of board discussion, is this an appropriate time to make some comments in regards to this particular issue?
That would be.
Okay. So just for the good of the public and in response to this, in meeting with Mid-American's representatives, one question that I asked, and we're talking about total height of 599 foot tall, that just for the public, that's over 3 times the size of the courthouse, or twice the size of the Statue of Liberty. That just helped me to put it in some perspective. We've seen different studies that have suggested 2,296 feet. I think you provided that last week.
That was one last week.
And that's where some of us had supported the 2,500. What I have asked, and I'll publicly ask this from Mid-American tonight to be received, is the manufacturer safety guidelines for GE, Siemens, Gamesa, and Vestas, in terms of the safety, data sheets, manufacturer specifications, and I want to phrase this very carefully, any information that Mid-American has and no less in terms of those specifications to be received into the matter of the public record at next week's hearing. So that's something that I publicly want to make that formal request because we hear all sorts of distance setbacks, and at one time it had been proposed that 600 was acceptable. We heard from Mid-American tonight that 3 times tower height is a minimum. That would be at least 1,800, whereas 1,250 is what has been contemplated in the past. So I just want to make that publicly known. Thank you very much.
All right, well, seeing that we're done with, well, I guess we got to receive this report. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. We're now on to item 9B, which is the public hearing for an ordinance to amend the
We're
portions.
available if other questions come
Woodbury County Ordinance Number 56, an amendment to modify Section 6.1A wind turbine setback requirements in the ordinance regulating commercial wind energy conversion systems in unincorporated Woodbury County. So, anyone would like to speak, you may come now.
Good afternoon. My name's Larry Philippi. I live 4 miles west, half mile north of Anthon, 2127 Cassuth Avenue. I've been at that residence for 25 years. I've actually been in Woodbury County all my life, so I know the county very well. That area that I just described, it's away from the city, industrial sites, it's away from noise, it's away from lights, and it's away from people. It is a farming community, and we want to keep it that way. I want to talk a little bit about Iowa Code 331.301. Iowa Code 331.301 governs county boards, and it gives you the right to exercise any power and perform any function it deems appropriate within the Iowa Constitution. It's to protect and preserve the rights, the privileges, and the property of the county and its residents. And I want to emphasize this. It also says to preserve and improve the peace, the safety, the health, the welfare, comfort, and convenience of its residents. What I just read was taken word for word out of Iowa Code 331.301. To preserve and improve the peace, safety, health, welfare, comfort, and convenience of its residents. We're talking about safety. I propose this is a gauge in writing to the board. This is your gut check in making sure the decisions that you make here today are following what your constituents and voting citizens want. Last week, we filled this room and we turned over to you 700-plus signatures, asking the setback to be 2,500 feet or greater. The number of petitioners keeps growing. There is nothing synonymous with these words to preserve peace, safety, health, welfare, comfort, and convenience of its residents when compared to a wind turbine industrial site. So what it is, not a wind farm, it's a wind industrial site. Absolutely nothing. We are a smarter society, we are wiser, we are more informed than ever before. Now that we have wind turbine industrial sites next door in our sister counties. If you want to know about them, you can walk up to them, you can see them, you can hear them, and you can actually talk to the folks that have had their lives turned upside down by them. Research is easy to do, and answers and facts are not hard to find. It may take a little time, and we know they are not everything that Mid-American says they are, or any company, or any other company for that matter. Not even remotely close. This is all about money. It's all it's ever been, is about money, and it's about greed. Iowa is about agriculture, not industrial wind turbines. As our county board, please help us keep it that way. Thank you.
Mark Nelson, 3773 180th Street, Correctionville. I'd like to enter in to the public record more petitions.
I'd move to receive.
Second. Motion by Taylor, second by DeWitt. Any
There's
discussion?
roughly 110 signatures there.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0.
There's roughly 110 signatures there. We had more that could not make it tonight, but we are still out there. And I just want you guys to know that the Sioux City Journal poll that was about 84% in favor of moving the setbacks, I think reaffirms exactly what we're finding here on our ask to sign ratio. It's 85% to 90% of folks that we ask on this initiative if they would be supportive of changing the setback, and they would. So I just want you to keep that in mind. I have with me a letter that I'm more than happy to enter into the public record when I'm done reading it. This is from a property owner in Plymouth County that is adversely affected by wind turbines. He wrote me this letter. He's more than happy to answer any questions you guys may have after the fact, but I would like to read it for the public today. Dear residents of Woodbury County, my name is Corey Kruger. I live on an acreage near Remsen, Iowa, home of the most recent wind farm, Plymouth Wind Energy LLC. My home now sits to the southwest of one of these turbines, less than 1/2 mile away. I'll tell you right up front that anyone that says these things don't make noise is a complete liar, and he capitalized liar. The only time they're quiet is when it's dead calm outside. Even in the slightest wind, there is a high-pitched whistle. Beyond that comes the constant whoosh of the blades, and on very windy days, I hear what sounds like jet engines running at half throttle, sitting on the tarmac waiting for takeoff. Quiet nights sitting outside no longer exist in my little slice of heaven. Neighbors first started telling me I was getting a windmill in my backyard, and I questioned my landowning neighbor and was told there's no way that he would ever have one. When the turbine site map came out, I saw one was plotted in the same quarter section as my home. Of course, the landowner had excuses, but assured me that it wouldn't bother me. As the project started and traffic increased, I called Plymouth Wind Energy project managers numerous times about getting dust control on the road. Not once did I receive a returned call from them. Finally, I stopped in the office and was told that my road was not a dedicated haul road and that I was not able to receive any dust control. While in the office, I was never once made it was any concern to anybody that I was obviously going to be affected by this turbine. As the project neared completion in the fall of 2021, I received my first notification letter in the mail from Plymouth Wind Energy. Enclosed was a song and dance of how we, him and Mid-American Energy, needed to be good neighbors and work together for the future of renewable energy. He wanted to point out that Mid-American bought this project before it was completed. If I was interested in becoming a good neighbor, I should contact them about entering into an easement agreement. After reluctantly stopping at the office, I was informed that since the wind turbine was within a 1/2 mile of my residence, I was eligible for a $1,000 sign-on bonus and $9,000 of a one-time payment or $500 annual payment for the estimated life of the turbine, 40 years. The entire time in the office, I was being told that the noise was so minimal that I'd likely never hear it and that I would rarely ever see a shadow from the blades. Again, the lies. I have a neighbor who put up a turbine after doing all of his homework on noise and visual pollution. He had it placed on his farm 1,780 feet from his house. If you ask him about his decision now, he'll outright tell you all the information out there is lies. All he hears now is noise from the turbine, and he sits with his back to it in the backyard. He said, "Corey, this was the worst decision I've ever made in my life. I'm just sick with myself." So my best advice to all of you in Woodbury County is to keep them out of your sight. They provide no long-term financial gain and definitely no local energy independence. Stay strong in your fight against these liars and hold your county officials accountable for the decisions they make in this matter. I'm more than happy to enter that into the public record.
Mr. Chairperson, your rules are 3 minutes.
I would like
to suspend those rules. You need to make a motion to suspend those rules if you're not going to do the 3 minutes.
I figured since he brought something up and we were receiving it.
We should have made it clear before we got started. But
Sure. All right, so motion to receive.
Move to receive.
Second.
Okay, motion by Taylor, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? 5-0. And
I would just like to make a comment that I think the most important thing in there is what he said about the good neighbor payments. So what that is a liability waiver for anyone living under a half
We're not suspending the
mile.
rules as far as time limits.
Okay.
I don't know if you have
Come
somebody else can bring up the point for you.
Okay, I'll
Thank
come
you.
back up in time. Thank you.
Yep.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Morgan, 2695 170th Street, Mobile. Obviously, I'm here to address the board on this, and I believe the setback at 1250 is sufficient and does not require adjustment. Also, I don't believe this is a political issue. But since you folks have brought it up, here's some food for thought. There are individuals sitting on this board that ran for their elected position by stating their focus is to champion tax relief and taxpayer savings and efficiency and growing economic development. This begs the question, Does this wind farm fall under these categories? It does, because according to Mid-American Energy, it will generate new property tax revenues of $4 million a year, $150 for the life of the project. This is tax relief with not having to raise taxes, and definitely falls under the economic development. There's no investment from Woodbury County or any effort from any county employees. No cost. Your final vote on this subject will determine whether you actually believe in your campaign focuses or if it was just rhetoric. Another argument may be, well, Woodbury County only gets 17, 18% of these dollars. This is what I was told by one of you gentlemen. I question this because I look at my own tax statement. The county gets close to 38%. It's called county rural. Schools get 54%. Western Iowa Tech, county assessor, local township, et cetera, get the remaining 8%. Now, these are numbers from Woodbury Township, or Mobile Township. Other townships are going to vary depending on what school district they're in. All of which stays in the county. So do you feel it's prudent to nix additional tax revenues from our schools, not to mention tax relief? These dollars benefit all the county, not just the individuals who participate. Apparently, some opposed to the project referred to the noise. I'm not one that puts much weight on he said, she said, or Facebook, or any of that. On August 2nd, I went to visit a turbine located in Plymouth County. I found that at 600 foot, which I stepped off, the sound is very noticeable. You got the turbine sound. I did not hear the swoosh, but the turbine sound is very noticeable. At 0.2 of a mile, which is roughly 1,050 feet, I could hear it if I stood still and concentrated. At 0.3 of a mile, which is just under 1,600 feet, I could not hear it. Now, this was all done
We'll have
August
to have
2nd.
you wrap it up there, Tom.
I don't believe this is political. I believe if these folks should be talking to their neighbors if they do not want it. You know, I'm getting cut off here, but also in my deeds to my property, nowhere does it say that I have a right to look at my neighbors across the fence and have a view. I believe the opposite is true as well.
Thank you. Come on up.
My name's Chuck Holker. I'm a landowner up in Banner Township, Section 1, clear up in the north end. We signed an agreement earlier this spring with Siouxland Wind Farms, and I thought that meant something, but evidently it doesn't. A lot of people were starting to do work surveying and picking out sites, and now this controversy over the setback distances, I've heard everything from it's the lights, it's the noise, it kills birds. I got a feeling that it's just a way of putting a kibosh on this wind project, and I don't think this is right. Right now, the state of Iowa has over 5,000 turbines working in the state. 1,250 feet was a kind of a standard that they used for that, and I don't know why we're thinking we have to be any different. It seems like anymore, if somebody's not happy about some little thing, we've got to write a new law, change a law. If we put one on one of the books, let's take two off. I think we've got enough laws. We're getting to the point where we have no control over our own land, what we can and can't do. I think supervisors are doing a disservice to the Woodbury County folks by not supporting this wind project. Look at this natural resource that we have, the wind. Everybody knows how much wind we have. Why can't we harvest it? it's just one of those things that I don't understand the mindset. The potential benefits for estimated property tax to the county over the life of the project, $150 million, would certainly help with some of our expenses. Not to mention the revenue that would produce for some of the landowners. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Next person.
Daniel Hare, 2889 Humboldt Avenue, Hornick, Iowa. Maybe I missed it, but the gentleman that was just up here, what was your address? Where were you from? I don't think.
307 Brookside, Kingsley, Iowa.
So you reside in Kingsley, Iowa, in Plymouth County, is that correct?
Right.
You don't live in Woodbury?
I don't live in Woodbury now.
Okay, that's all I was asking, just want to know where you lived. Yeah, it makes a big difference because people here live in Woodbury County, and that's why we're here. So
That's, okay.
Sir, I just asked a question because it is the rules that you come up here
Okay.
and state your name and address when you speak into the microphone.
Okay, we're not gonna have debate in the hall. It's, you take your turn, it's a public hearing.
Okay, I just want to bring up a couple things here quick. I got some of what Mid-America handed out at the county fair. It's their own thing. It talks about property values here. They cited that these things, these monstrosities would increase your property values. They cited that using the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. Well, this is right from Lawrence Berkeley's website. Berkeley Lab is a multi-program science lab in the National Laboratory System supported by the U.S. Department of Energy. So, what does the U.S. Department of Energy look like? You pull that up, you got a picture of President Biden right on the front with a giant wind turbine in the background. Now I'd like to kind of show you, this is what that study looks like right here, first few pages of this Lawrence Berkeley study. I'd like to read down at the very bottom of it. It says, this work was supported by the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, Wind and Water Power Technologies Office of the U.S. Department of Energy. Next, I would like to flip forward here to a few pages of that same report and read the acknowledgments. For funding and supporting this work, we especially thank Patrick Gilman, Cash Fitzpatrick, and Mark Higgins, also of the U.S. Department of Energy. So, I don't think it takes someone that's got a lot of schooling to realize that this is a very biased report that you guys are using to support your property values. The results gathered in this study were from areas where the turbines were placed in relatively unpopulated areas. Only about 2% of the sales studied involved properties a mile or less from the turbines. 2%. Next, I'd like to bring up just a quick fact here. You guys have, you also passed this out at the fair. It's called Helping Eagles Soar Again. It says, Mid-America provided funding to ensure the SOAR program had the resources they needed to help 20 bald eagles recover from their ailments and return to the wild, strong, and healthy. 20 bald eagles. Well, here's some facts here that I found on the internet. NextEra, another energy company, was just fined recently $8 million for killing over 150 eagles. Industry and environmental groups believe 300 to 500 bald and golden eagles are killed by wind turbines each year.
Wait. You know what that means too. You gonna wrap her up?
All right, I'll wrap it up with these slots. Mid-American thought they could come to this county and run over a bunch of gullible country bumpkins. They picked the wrong county. Our people are passionate, intelligent, and love Woodbury County as it is. We don't want these 600-foot tall industrial monsters near our residences or on our lush hills. Therefore, I'm asking each of you today to support the setbacks of 2,500 feet or greater. No compromises. Thank you.
Hi, Will Doherty, Mid-American Energy. I'd like to submit a few materials to the board.
Move to receive.
Second.
Motion by Taylor, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So, go ahead.
Okay, so I guess the first one I kind of want to talk about, nice little setup there. property values around wind farms. So that is one study that Mr. Hare had referenced in the materials I just gave you. There's actually an additional 9 studies that are done independently of that one that kind of reaffirm those results that were found in the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab finding. The other studies as well go across 3 countries with over 1.6 million property transactions over the course of 18 years. So I feel like that might be a pretty thorough representation of long-term property values and the effects that wind turbines might have on those. Another piece in there is a U of Iowa College of Public Health. I know there was some conversation last week about the health surrounding wind farms and the sound and noise and the impacts of that on the surrounding populations. The conclusion of this research article that was done by University of Iowa Public Health concluded that noise that is emitted from wind turbines has no health effects on the public surrounding. The last one I wanted to bring up is another one from Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. It is not a research article, it is a research survey. So what that one is basically an opinion survey that was sent out to masses of people in surrounding wind farms, asking them their perceptions of the wind farm and their perceptions of sound and shadow regarding said wind farm. It found very strong conclusions that perceptions of sound and shadow were directly correlated to perceptions of wind turbines altogether. So those are 3 issues that I just wanted to make the board aware of based on last week's comments, and I'm more than happy to answer any additional questions at a later time. Thank you.
Hello, Brittany Vandermolen, 3345 245th Street, Anthon. So I actually read the study. It was by Iowa that Will referenced, and it was a research study. But it was 2 researchers reading everybody else's research. So they took what they wanted to report. So I urge you, instead of taking the Iowa researchers, to go out and actually read the studies that they read, okay? So I've been reading as well. I study biology, and when I read those and I hear about people's health and their sleeplessness, dizziness, increased cortisol levels, I look at that and think, how is that going to affect our people that live here? And it's going to trigger other diseases and illnesses. We know that. So please protect the health and well-being of our people that are here. I'd like to read an excerpt from a biologist, Dr. Lynn Kuth. He wrote to the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin, the problems with animal reproduction. Animals reproduce a lot faster. Their lifespans are not as long as us as humans. So we can see what is happening in animals a whole lot faster than we can see what's happening in humans. So he said there's, in Wisconsin, a lack of egg production, problems calving, spontaneous abortion, stillbirths, miscarriages, chickens missing or having crossed beaks, missing eyeballs, deformities of the skull, the leg joints, cattle missing eyeballs and tails. It goes on to talk about Jim Vollmer, who's a farmer who owns chickens, reports that the structures of his buildings vibrate. The low frequency sound is strong enough to vibrate structures on his farm as it passes through. So what is it doing to the connections and the circulations inside those developing chicken embryos and inside the people that are also there? So my main concern is everyone is talking about property values, money, turbines falling apart, and ice, but nobody is actually talking about what's going to biologically happen to us as humans and my children. I have them here, and I don't think each of you wants to face them in 10, 20, 30 years when they're not able to have children. So I would like to submit these from Adverse Effects of Industrial Wind Turbines from the College of Family Physicians to you guys to read and review.
Move to receive.
Second.
Motion by Taylor, second by DeWitt. Any discussion?
Secondly, I'd
All
like
those in
you-
favor say aye.
Excuse me.
Aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Go ahead.
This biologist talked about miscarriages. We are an egg community. We raise a lot of animals for food production. I'll wrap this up.
Thank you.
Stillbirths. I don't know how many cattle are raised in this county, but there's a lot. So if we have a lot of stillbirths, we're going to have a lot of dead animals, and they have to be buried somewhere. I don't want them buried where my water source is. Furthermore, if they're deformed animals, I don't want those being put into our food sources. So I think you also need to consider what is happening to our food sources, what is going to happen to our water sources, and biologically, what is happening to our families. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Adam Jablonski, Mid-American Energy. So since last week, we've been asked a lot by our 60 participating landowners so far, representing 11,000 acres. What is the solution? Obviously, some people don't want them, some people do want them. So, how do you balance the interests of your constituents in Woodbury County? So we ran through the ordinance, and I mean, these would obviously make it more difficult to site wind turbines in the county and much more costly for Mid-American. But some proposals, some ideas to maybe consider to balance those interests across the county. I mentioned last week the residence setback. We could go up to 1,600 feet, or it was mentioned before, 3 times the tip height of the turbine. That would range anywhere from 1,500 to 1,800, and 1,800 would be one of the most strict setbacks in Iowa. And just as a reminder, we've got operating turbines at 1,000 feet, from residences. Some have been operating for more than 20 years successfully without any safety incidents, thankfully. Sound and shadow. We don't say they don't produce sound. We don't say they don't produce shadow. We know that. We study it. We cite around that. Sound. Nearly all noise limitations in Iowa put a maximum at any given point in time, not constant, of 50 to 60 decibels. Mid-American sites where we don't exceed 50 decibels at any given point in time. A sound limit in there. Shadow. Not a lot of counties have shadow limits on there, but those that do are about at 30 hours per year. That's what Mid-American sites at, maximum 30 hours a year or below. You could also implement a shadow maximum. The Les Hills, you can ban that all you want. We would never build there. I mean, we would never build a project there. I think it was discussed about a year ago about taking away landowners' rights in that area if you just did a complete ban on the Les Hills, because a lot of it's agricultural land. But that would not affect our plans. We would never build in the Les Hills. The FAA lighting, some people brought up the red flashing lights. I mentioned this last week, but something we are investing in, researching, and going to put a test site in this year is the radar-activated lighting system. Again, we don't think there's not one that we're aware of that's operating in Iowa, and only a handful across the U.S. But if we get through that, it's deemed safe, it's viable. That's also another requirement that you could put in your ordinance to make it more strict to address some of those landowner concerns. So just some ideas to balance the interest among all constituents across Woodbury County, those that want it and those that don't. These would obviously make it much more difficult for us to build, much more costly for us to build, but again, trying to find that middle ground we talked about last week. Open to any workshops or anything afterwards to get more information, discuss this further, to dive in more thoroughly as needed. But that's it. Thank you for your time.
One quick question.
Yes, sir.
Do you know what model of, what were you thinking, Siemens, Goldwyn, Vestas, any certain brand?
Mid-American has stuck with the 3. Maybe Supervisor Taylor, you may have mentioned, but Siemens Gamesa, Vestas, and GE are our primary suppliers. Those who have been installed over the past handful of years. I don't think we've installed a different model since 15 years ago or something like that.
Siemens, GE, and who else?
Siemens Gamesa, General Electric, and Vestas, V-E-S-T-A-S.
Okay,
are the
Vestas.
big 3 suppliers, the more reputable ones.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question more?
Sure.
One of the questions that I had asked earlier, and I think is important for the public to know, is what is the relationship between Mid-American and NextEra Invergy? If that's
no relationship with NextEra.
Okay, so they are competitors
They're,
potentially rather than a subsidiary or a cooperative?
Competitors, they're a Florida power company. I think they're a renewable arm that goes around the United States and develops projects.
And do you have any knowledge of their involvement in this county in terms of procuring
Yes.
easements?
We have heard that they are out in a similar area that we are trying to obtain easements.
Okay, and do you have any, I know you probably can't speak on their behalf, nor would want to do so, but do you have any information on what they may want to put in terms of height, brand, anything?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to speak on their behalf. But what I can tell you is the models that are available currently, and this changes over time, obviously, you know, they have a tip height of the 500-ish. Usually they try to come in below 500 feet, because otherwise it triggers another FAA review, a more lengthier FAA review. So it's either just under 500 feet, or they get up to like 591 feet is the tallest tip height turbine we've installed.
And any other companies besides NextEra that you're aware of that are procuring easements in Woodbury County?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And anybody on Mid-American's behalf that is not NextEra that could be potentially doing something?
We try to develop these ourselves if we can, have much more control. Whether people believe it or not, we care more about the community. You know, we serve electricity, gas to the community. So we have offices, we have employees here. So we try to have more control when we develop our wind farm, so we don't have to, you know, buy it from a out-of-state company. I'll say that in that Plymouth project that was referenced, that was built by an out-of-state company that we eventually bought after it was placed into operation. But if we can, we like to have more control over the development and the relationships we have with the landowners, with the county engineer, et cetera, throughout that process. So that's what we're trying to do here with the Siouxland Wind Farm.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to make a point, and this is not to be condescending, it's not to be a slap in the face, but when I hear that X amount of feet would be the most restrictive in the state, can we please agree that that's not accurate? When we have counties that have outright banned them altogether? So I would like to stop with the most restrictive in the state if we are there at 2,500.
No, some have put in a moratorium.
So
Some have effectively put in a moratorium by putting it at, 2,000 feet plus. That's what they're doing. But you're correct. There are a few counties that have something more strict than 1,800 feet, but, on purpose, I would say. They said no more wind, or they don't want wind, or whatever. That's what that does.
Well, I'm just not comfortable with the label that we would be the most restrictive when I know there's counties out there that have outright said no.
That falls in that
So
description I just stated. Yep, but you're correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think we're good.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity to address this issue. I am not a resident of Woodbury County. I was for a long time.
State your name for the record, please.
Just give me a chance, okay?
Sure.
Ray Wright. I currently live in Whiting on a farm, 16561 170th Street. I lived in Sioux City for 40 years. I was a UPS driver. I know a lot of people here in the room today, and I was asked to voice a personal experience by an acquaintance of mine. I at one time owned farm ground in Bryan County, probably 12, 15 years ago. It was the home of one of the original wind energy farms on what was called the Buffalo Ridge. And the reason I do not live in O'Brien County after retirement, and I chose a different county, is because of my negative experiences with dealing with wind energy development. My farm was originally enrolled by the previous owner. So at that time, and I don't know how things work now, but that enrollment transferred with the property. So I was stuck with enrollment. Properties adjoining mine were enrolled. Upon final construction, there was not a wind energy tower put on my property, but there were wind energy towers put on 2 adjoining properties. I do not know exactly what the setbacks were at that time, but there ended up being one turbine about 200 feet from my southern property line. After this wind energy farm was totally developed and all transmission lines were in, these farms that were originally enrolled and did not end up with any transmission line or a tower were disenrolled. My farm was disenrolled, and I currently, or would have, had I maintained ownership, I would have had a tower 200 feet from my border, which that is one of the examples that you as landowners have to be 100% aware of, get prudent legal counsel. There are a lot of loopholes out there. An acquaintance of mine is currently dealing with potential wind turbine in Pocahontas County. His legal counsel told him if he signed that, he would forfeit homestead rights, hunting rights, and mineral rights. So you make sure, if you're gonna accept these 30 pieces of silver, you know what you're giving away.
My name is Bernard Hare. My address is 3030 Deer Run Trail, Anthony, Iowa. I met my landlord about a month ago, and the man that was there promoting these windmills was from Nextera. I asked him directly, do you guys have anything to do with Mid-American? No, we have nothing to do with them. We're bigger than Mid-American. So what I want to know is, why isn't Nextera here promoting these windmills rather than Mid-American? I think they're in cahoots. So I think they are. And Nextera didn't say they wouldn't build on the Los Hills. So what's going on here? Is Nextera bigger than Mid-American, or is Nextera a front for Mid-American? That's what I want to know.
I'm Bob Fritzmeyer, and I'm at 2933 Leach here in Sioux City. And I want to apologize to you supervisors. Last week when I spoke here, I said that I did not think there were economic impacts that would come from this, this issue. And I was wrong. I was wrong about that because I've gotten new information, and I think there are economic facts. And one of those facts is that I do take the word of Mid-American Energy that there will be financial benefits for not only our communities, the rural areas, the Sioux City, but the schools actually will receive $2 million a year, from what I understand, would be the benefit that in tax, the tax that would come in from Mid-American, from the projects. So I'm hoping that each of you will please consider our school children and the benefits that would come from that. Now, last week I sent each of you a copy of this report. I brought my copy with me. It was done on the sound, the science of the sounds that come from the wind turbines. It's already been referenced here today. I'll just mention that there was also one of these studies that was done by David Osterberg of the Iowa Policy Project and Peter Thorne, who is the University of Iowa person that was mentioned in the first study, and then Carrie Johansson of the Iowa Environmental Council. I'd like to read one last paragraph in their paper. They say, as we note in the paper, new technology often must answer to the various effects it may have on both economics and health. Too often the human and environmental impacts are separated from the economic questions, as we have seen with the substantial health burdens brought by fossil fuel-based power generation. Basically what these studies do is they conclude that there are no health problems that come from the wind farms, the wind turbines, even one wind turbine. And so as we go forward, I hope you'll continue to consider the information, and I surely support the previous speaker from Mid-American when he was showing flexibility. I hope we can find balance and flexibility. He mentioned there might have to be a little more than 1,250 feet setback. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Gabriella Woodman. I live at 1847 Old Highway 141, Sergeant Bluff. I will be a senior in high school this fall. I represent the next generation, and I'm asking you to increase the setback distance to 2,500 feet. My family has been farming in Woodbury County for 5 generations. My siblings and I intend to be part of the 6th. My whole life, my family and I have worked together, raising livestock and crops, and we love what we do. After college, I plan to come back to the family farm and continue the tradition. I want to raise my kids the way I've been raised and give them the same opportunities I have. Most of the people who want to build these wind turbines on their land, they'll be gone in 20, 30, maybe 40 years. We, the future generations, will still be here, suffering the long-term consequences of this project. We're the ones who have the most to lose if you allow this project to continue. What if the wind turbine companies go out of business or abandon their wind turbines, and we have to figure out how to remove them? Last week, Mid-American's representative said that the wind turbines they're planning to build are about 600 feet tall. They said again tonight. According to the Northwest Mining Association, one wind turbine of that size uses 350 tons of steel, copper, aluminum, and rare earth elements, plus 1,200 tons of concrete base. Removing that amount of material is hardly imaginable. Also, Mid-American said that each wind turbine will take up about 3/4 of an acre for the base and the connecting service road. Multiply that by 100 wind turbines, and that's 75 acres of now unfarmable land. Also, soil compaction, miles of the buried wires connecting the wind turbines will cause even further irreversible damage to the land. Farming, already a hard business for young people to get into, will become even more difficult if we decrease the amount of usable land. What if I want to buy some land and build a house where I can raise my family? Being surrounded by wind turbines will make it difficult to find a suitable and safe place. Besides throwing ice, we heard tonight about the shadows and noise and the long-term health issues, which not only affecting my family, they'll affect my animals as well. So it's not just my house I'm worried about. If there's a wind turbine next to my pasture, then I'm gonna have to worry about the health and safety of my livestock too. So wind turbines are going to greatly change the way we farm and live, and it's gonna hurt our livelihoods. Woodbury County is a beautiful place. I live right on the line where the hills roll down to meet the flat bottom land. I like to watch the sun come up in the morning, and I like to hear the crickets and coyotes at night. I don't want to live anywhere else in the country. It's beautiful, quiet, and peaceful. I don't want to see 50 to 60 story high wind turbines around me when I wake up in the morning, hear them throughout the day, and see their flashing lights at night. I want my kids and my grandkids to be able to live here as well, enjoying the beauty of the country and our unique Les Hills. In 100 years, everyone in this room will be dead and gone, but the impact of your decision will not be. I ask you, as you listen to people's arguments and reasons tonight, to think of us, the future generations. Wind turbines are not the green energy source that people have been searching for. They aren't safe, cost-effective, or even a practical source of energy. They will destroy the farming life as we know it and our futures as well. I urge you to make the right decision and move the setback distance to 2,500 feet or more. Please, protect the future of our families and of Woodbury County. Thank you.
You say we had somebody on the phone there, Karen? Somebody want?
Yes, this is Rick Davis. I live at 2967 185th Street, Mobile, Iowa. My sons and I own about 1,500 acres approximately in eastern Woodbury County. We've been contacted by Mid-American Energy to put in 8 sites, and we refused on that. We also own Musk Hills Ag, with chemical seed, and we custom spray about 50,000 acres with ground rigs and 40,000 acres with aerial helicopters, spraying insecticides and fungicides. The thing that bothers me about this, every time we come into a quarter section that has pilings, poles and stuff, and wind turbines, the pilots will not go into that quarter section. And sometimes when you get insect infestations and need for fungicides, you need to spray these fields quickly. We come in and we spray those 40,000 acres in 6 weeks. As a young man, I thought once you bought farm ground, you owned that farm ground and you could do everything you wanted on it. As I've gotten older, I realize you are a caretaker of this farm ground. You need to leave it back for the next generation in the shape and form that supports agriculture. So we have concerns about being able to spray stuff safely when there's this many wind turbines in the county. Thank you.
My name's John Nelson, 1255 Minnesota Avenue, Correctionville, Iowa. I have a letter written to me by a Cherokee County resident. He approached me with this letter, wanted me to read it here, and I submit it to the board after I read it if necessary. Dear windmills, I have windmills on 3 sides of my acreage at 171 470th Street, Marcus, Iowa. These windmills are about half mile in distance from my acreage. When there is just a low wind, the noise from the windmills can be heard inside my house. Sounds like a race car is driving on my driveway. P.S. Safety first. If these blades were to falter, they would surely smash cars and people. Dave Schreier. Would you like me to submit that to you guys, or that's all I have?
I move to receive.
Second.
Got a motion by Taylor, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Passes 5-0. Next one.
Mr. Chair, in the spirit of not having a meeting go as late as it did last week, might we do another show of hands?
Anybody that had anything left unsaid that they wanted to say? Come on up. Prefer it be something we haven't heard.
My name is Elizabeth Widman. I live at 1665 220th Street, Sergeant Bluff. I live out in the country, and I'm a landowner, and every morning when I wake up, I look out my window, I see the Les Hills. I think I live in one of the most beautiful parts in the country. We have eagles. I've mentioned this before. We have eagles that fly by our place. We have migratory birds that come through. And I know we have verbal assurances we would never build at Les Hills. Well, anybody who does business knows that something that's told you verbally is not something that a company has to be held to. The only assurances you have are what is written in an agreement, what you have for a law. And I just urge you to put these setbacks at 2,500 feet, because the only protections that we have as citizens are these setbacks. And the people that can do that is you. And I have a letter I'd like to read quickly, and I'll give it to you when I'm done. This is from Rebecca Castle, the Les Hills National Scenic Byway Coordinator, and it's to the supervisors, to whom it may concern. On behalf of the Les Hills National Scenic Byway, I would like to express our concerns about the impact that potential wind turbine development in Woodbury County could have on the viewshed of the Les Hills. While Iowa lacks any national parks or national forests, we do have 7 national natural landmarks in the state, one of these being the Les Hills. Also of national significance, Woodbury County is within the Les Hills National Scenic Byway Corridor. The byway attracts regional, national, and international travelers in search of a scenic route through the unique Les Hills landform region. And I'll insert here, it's been said before, there's only 2 places in the world where these are, in China and here in Iowa. As all of these visitors travel through Woodbury County, they contribute to the local economies by purchasing fuel, meals, lodging, and retail goods. With regards to the traveler experience, we are concerned that the addition of wind turbines to the landscape could greatly impede the area's aesthetic value. The Les Hills National Scenic Byways Corridor Management Plan, which was adopted by each of the 7 counties in Iowa's Les Hills, specifically addresses concerns about changes to the view shed of the Les Hills and regulation of towers and antennas to protect the resources of the Les Hills. The addition of turbines would change the view of the landscape, which could negatively affect the intrinsic scenic quality of the byway, and thereby also the travel experience rating. Not only are the Les Hills a vital contributor to the economic success and quality of life for Sioux City and the small rural communities of Woodbury County, but they are an important natural resource for plant and animal habitat. The Les Hills and the Missouri River Valley also represent an important travel corridor for migratory birds, which raises additional concerns about the impact that the turbines may have on these birds. We certainly applaud efforts to transition to green energy sources, but believe that there are many factors to consider when looking for placement of these turbines, and hope that these will be taken into account when making decisions about future developments. And sincerely, Rebecca Castle, Les Hills National Scenic Byway Coordinator. And so I have concerns about, ruining the beauty of our county, the birds, the wildlife, safety factors, and I just would really urge you to increase the setback to 2,500, and I'd like to submit 5 copies of this
receive.
letter.
Second.
Motion by Radig, second by Taylor. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? 5-0. Come on.
My name's Nathan Vandermolen. I live at 3345 245th Street, rural Anthony, Iowa, in Woodbury County. I'm in favor of extending the wind turbine distance to 2,500 feet, if that's what we have. If it was, in my opinion, I don't think we should have them at all. I appreciate your time and just have a few things I want to add, and I won't be too long-winded. When I travel through our neighboring counties that have put up wind farms, I'm reminded how their landscape will forever be changed, and in my opinion, not for the good. What power is generated from the turbines is far outweighed by the negative footprint that they will leave on the landscape for decades to come. My wife and I decided to settle in Woodbury County, and we could have moved to a lot of other counties. We moved to Woodbury County for the opportunity to raise livestock, wildlife and public lands, peacefulness and beauty. Had there been a chance for a wind turbine to be 1,250 from my house, I would have never purchased my current property. Our property is surrounded by cropland, and a wind turbine at our current distance would create an inherent risk and unnecessary risk to our children, family, and livestock. And if you come out to my place, I guarantee it'll lower my property value. It might be other places where it doesn't, but if you come visit and then there's a wind turbine up there, it's not going to be good. As previously discussed, I'd like to echo the cited research studies, and we have proof of the catapulting risks in the property values decreasing, and values decreasing in the wind farms. And further, and I know this sounds absurd, but as a law-abiding taxpayer and a citizen, I don't think I should have to accept the fact that blinking lights are going to be shining in my house. I mean, are city residents allowed to shine lasers and lights in their neighboring homes whenever they want? And I'd also like to point out the health-related studies, which I think carry some merit and weight in this situation. I mean, it doesn't take a PhD to figure out Wisconsin's not that far away. And Wisconsin's a big cattle producer as well, so is Iowa. I don't think we want our livestock producers to have to deal with the effects of these. Again, I'm in favor of extending the distance to at least 2,500 feet. Please, listen to your citizens. Listen to how many people have signed the petition. How many people are here that want the 1,250? Not many. 2? One of them doesn't even live in Woodbury County. Please look at this rationally. I hope you make a decision for the people and not for big corporate money. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sam Thomas. I live at 718 Logan Drive in the town of Mobile, but I own land in Woodbury County, a Century Farm. And all I need to say here tonight is I appreciate those of you that are giving every one of these speakers your complete and undivided attention. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
My name's Nick Lars. I live at 1815 Bronson Blacktop. I'll touch on something that maybe hasn't been mentioned yet. Comparing this to some zoning changing rules in small cities or county, you think about commercial zones can more easily be turned into residential zones because the residents are willing to move close to them. Residential zones don't typically turn into commercial zones due to the effect the commercial project would have on the residents. If entities such as counties and towns and cities want big projects like this, they need to be planned before the population grows. In this case, the population of Woodbury County has already grown too high, making Woodbury County not a good location for this project. Thank you.
I'm Doyle Turner, Mobile, Iowa, 2738 200th Street. I'm not fully aware. Can I ask questions of the board members? Mr. Wright and Mr. Radig, you voted against expanding it last week. Your engineer, Mark Nahara, I've been a very competent engineer, and he has essentially defined what I'll call a catapult zone around these turbines. And you're voting to put people's houses just a little bit off of the middle of that catapult zone. And I guess my question is, do you have an engineering background? What is your experience with Mark Nahara that you doubt his numbers that we're putting people at risk in their own homes?
So I guess if I were to answer that, I looked at quite a few different studies on catapult zones. And of course, that does depend on which way the blades are facing, if they're going to be facing right at a property. So obviously, you know, if you're constructing a windmill, you wouldn't construct it facing directly at that property.
But those turbines turn.
Right, but they turn this way, or is the windmill this way?
But they turn all the way around. Oops, sorry.
No, the windmill doesn't turn around this way.
Yes, it does.
It turns this way. Okay. So,
Mr. Raddick, I asked a question here a couple weeks ago.
just let me just demonstrate. Okay, Jeremy's the house. The windmill goes this way. He's in the zone. If the windmill is placed this way, it goes that way.
They have to face the wind.
Right.
Can you please tell him that they turn?
Do they all turn? Okay. What angles do they turn? Okay. So I'm wrong.
Does that change your opinion?
Well, still, again, if you look at all the different studies, okay, and he brought up Goldwyn says 1,640 feet is the maximum. Vestas says 1,640 feet. So it depends on whose study you're reading, and a lot of times you're citing Wisconsin study, which Wisconsin study, if you look at that, a lot of that was actually put together by people that were anti-wind in the first place. So correct. They're always trying to find a worst case scenario, or whether it be the property values or...
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Mark Nahara's, what he was looking at were documented, not theoretical, but documented things that were thrown
documented studies
and measured.
To find out different results.
Well,
you have to be able to be discerning in what you're looking at. If you're only going to look at only the worst case scenario in every study, you can't do anything in the world.
But here's the deal. You know, they make revolvers in 5-chamber, 6-chamber, and 7-chamber.
But
I mean, you're basically saying that it's okay.
But if you went to the worst case study with the revolver, guns kill, and you should never own them, right?
that should be my
Well, that's
choice.
worst case scenario. Now
Yes.
it's a choice.
Right.
Now
But
somebody
the
has a
problem
choice.
is, it's Russian roulette if I put the gun to my head, but if somebody like the Supervisors or Mid-American put the gun to my head, it's no longer Russian roulette,
But
it's
you
murder.
you just brought up another choice, right? The right to own a gun, right?
Right.
So should we take away that right because somebody might choose to murder?
I don't think wind turbines are protected by.
That's a constitutionally protected rights. I don't
Property
believe.
rights are protected by the Constitution, and that's where I make my
right.
stand.
Okay, so if I put up I go on 10 acres and I put up a hog building, I can put 4,000 hogs on that hog building. But that is not the footprint of that hog building. The footprint is the thousands of acres it may take to spread manure responsibly as well. Your county takes the information from our livestock producers to register what we do with that manure. It is regulated. I'm not asking you to do anything different with Mid-American than you do with the rest of our county. Our livestock producers, if they don't own enough land to spread that manure, they have to work with their neighbor, just like Mr. Wright said last week. When our neighbor's going to work together, well, maybe it's when Mid-American and our county board of supervisors stop dividing us. You know,
We're not dividing you.
yes, you are, because you're pitting one neighbor against another, because you're putting people's homes inside a catapult zone that they can't choose.
Again,
Their neighbor gets to
who
choose.
which study defines a catapult zone? Because again, if you look at different studies, they're all going to show different zones. So if you're only going to look at the worst case scenario study, then you're not being open-minded either.
Well, I think Ford Motor Company pretty much said the exact same thing about the Ford Pinto. And how'd that turn out? I mean, I think you guys are taking a tremendous amount of liability to say, guess what? We're going to give Mid-American the ability to throw things at you in a zone that we have evidence proves your house is inside that zone. And you're saying they have that right. And I'm saying the landowner should make that choice.
I still think you're more likely to get hit by a car driven by your neighbor than ever hit by any blade, by any windmill.
I decide when I get in my car, you don't decide.
Well, you don't have
for
to
me.
be in the car. You could be walking in your driveway.
But that is
by a
my
car.
choice, right?
No, not if
That's
you're
the
hit by a
part
car.
of freedom.
Mr. Chairman, this is a public hearing.
Sure. Let's move on. You've had your 3 minutes.
Thank you.
The rules are one per item.
One time. Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
That's just my job, folks.
Good afternoon. I'm Dennis Raymond, 1923 Safford Avenue, Rock Township, Correctionville. I think my perspective would be a little different than what you've heard. My job is farm management, real estate sales, and appraisal around northwest Iowa. I think that my company, Stalkup Ag Service in Storm Lake, probably manages farms in every wind farm in northwest Iowa. So we've had a lot of experience going back 25 years when the first one was put in on Buffalo Ridge, north and west of Storm Lake. I don't know anything about catapult zones. I can tell you they catch on fire. I've seen at harvest time when the corn is dry and the wind's blowing, you got a heck of a fire risk when that happens. And I've seen it happen. It's been a number of years, but I've seen it happen twice with my own eyes. As far as view shed, you know, when you look at O'Brien County, Pocahontas County, Sac County, even Ida County to our immediate neighbor to the east, I enjoy every county I work in. I enjoy all of northwest Iowa. Nobody's got the view shed of Woodbury County. So the older I get, the more I love to look at it. I'd just as soon not see wind towers across it. But that's my personal choice. If you do put wind towers, I hope that you do enforce a larger setback. I drive south of Storm Lake to Highway 20 through Shaler. Highway 110, if you're there in the afternoon when the sun is setting, you're gonna drive through some shadows. It doesn't bother me, but it is disconcerting to some people, especially if they're not used to it. So these are factors. As far as view shed, I can tell you, east of my place where my brother lives, if you stand up on the highest hill and you look east into, he's a mile from the Ida County line, you look east into Ida County, the first wind tower is 8 miles as a crow flies, but it looks like it's right over there. So they look close because they're big. And I hope we preserve the view. Thank you.
My name is Peter Woodman. I live on 1847 Old Highway 141, Sergeant Bluff, closer to Bronson. I have a couple questions. If turbines are so safe and the incidents are so low, and if the odds of an accident are so low, why does Mid-America want liabilities waivers from homeowners up to 2,640 feet away? And is that an admission of guilt? And if the county engineer says we need to be closer to 2,000 and we go to 1,250, doesn't the county have liability in that? Those are my questions. Thank you.
So do we want to do the show of hands? Sure. You got one more?
Good afternoon. Thank you for your hard work. You know, we all hear a lot about the Iowa. Bev Zehner, I'm sorry, 2294 Hancock Avenue, Mobile, Iowa. And my husband and I were just at the Great Iowa State Fair. And we happened to be at one of the Varied Industries building, and short story was a friend of our granddaughter is from Sac County, and she is coming up to the wind turbine booth down there, and they want to explain to her what wind turbine benefits are. And her family farms in Sac County, and they moved on to the farm that they didn't own, they rented it. But the owner signed up for a wind turbine, and their negative livestock experience after that was what she told the wind turbine people about. So it was kind of an about-face interaction at our state fair from somebody that has had personal experience. Thank you.
I guess anybody that would like to say that they support moving the setbacks further to 2,500 feet, please raise your hands. And then anybody that would like to have them lower or at the 1,250 where they currently are. So, all right. Where we're at here. Anybody from the board like to say anything?
I want to answer Doyle's question. For me, I believe to be rare, and I'm not as well researched as I would like to be at this point. There's a lot to try to learn about these things, but I believe those awful circumstances are rare. I put a lot of stake in what a close family member thinks about these things. He works for Iowa State Extension. He works with farm families on estate planning. He's been doing it for a number of years. He's pro-turbine. And I put a lot of stake in what he thinks. So to your point, on the safety issue, I just don't know enough at this point to draw any conclusions that there is considerable risk involved in being in a property adjacent to these things. And I may be wrong, but at this point, I don't know enough to draw that conclusion.
He's just making a statement. Go ahead.
So I'll just make 2 quick points. One is, we started off a year and a half ago at a potential of 600 feet. And today, hearing that Mid-American is saying 1,800 feet as a minimum, to me is disconcerting, because that's 3 times greater than they were initially willing to accept. I'm somebody who wants to err on the side of caution when we're talking about human life, or when we're talking about livelihood. And if it's 2,296 feet according to one study, then I'd be at 2,500. I never want to walk on the edge of the cliff. So I've made that known. The second point I want to make is I have asked Mid-American to release the information in terms of the contract regarding the liability that they will or will not take on in terms of if somebody is injured or killed. And so I'm looking forward to that being received as a matter of the public record. And then finally, I just want to talk about process. We obviously have disagreements on this board, and we have disagreements in the community, but I want to just applaud everybody here and on the board. At the end of the day, I respect each one of these people and respect everybody in the room. I've been asked if we would waive the 3rd hearing, which would be next week, and I've said no, because if you couldn't come last week and you can't come tonight, this is part of the process. We had 3 hearings the last time when it was 12:50. You deserve to be able to make your voice heard, and I think this is part of the process as it plays out tonight. So I applaud you all for taking your time. You know, there's a lot of other places you could be, but we appreciate hearing from each and every one of you.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
I will ditto a lot of what Mr. Taylor said. My position has evolved a little bit, and to those that are wanting the 2,500-foot setback, don't get nervous. But my position has evolved such that if we were sitting here voting on something that was absolutely constitutional and it varied or strayed or tried to do away with one of our citizens' rights as constitutionally speaking, I know where I'd be. I swore to uphold the Constitution, and I will support that. However, we're talking about something here that I represent all of Woodbury County. I represent those both for and against. But when far and away the majority of the folks are showing up, calling me, and telling me their opinions that they, if anything, they want a minimum of 2,500 feet. Again, this is the majority of the people. I feel like I have to listen to the majority of my constituents. So my vote will not change. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Well, in my 8 years on the board, I haven't been contacted more on any other issue than this one. And so I appreciate all of your feedback from both sides, really, and the time. And also, fellow board members, the earnest and honest discussion on your rationale, I think this has been a fair discussion. Obviously, numbers isn't everything, though, just like money isn't everything. I realize wind turbines may be well enough received in more sparsely populated counties around Iowa, but that does not mean they need to be received here. A lot of the discussion we've had today has been about the current picture, whether that's safety or the view. I would just add to that something that I don't think has been discussed as much, and something that I think that we as a board need to weigh into everything we decide, whether it's building a new building or servicing what we have, and that's the future of the future economic development. We have a significant affordable housing issue, and we already have a highly populated county compared to other counties in Iowa. And so another issue I have with wind turbines in our county is that it would restrict necessarily future housing development, whether it's from a generation wanting to partition off part of their land or to bring in someone else that wants that flexibility, even in the future if there's an ordinance change at that time. I don't think it matters particularly how well the discussion goes, the communication is between the current generation of neighbors when you're making decisions that are 40-plus year decisions. And so for those reasons, my vote will not change either.
All right, so do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second?
Motion by Taylor, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, item 9C, conduct and approve second reading of ordinance amendment.
I would move to conduct and approve the second reading of the ordinance amendment.
Second?
Motion by Taylor, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Nay. Passes 3-2. Thank you. Moving on to item 11A from Building Services, approve WCICC Data Center Emergency Generator Project Engineering and Architectural Design fees from Resource Consulting Engineers, LLC, in the amount of $32,500.
Kenny Schmitz, Building Services Director. The item before you is an engineering services agreement. I requested that Resource Consulting Engineers draft the agreement for us to take a look at the replacement, emergency power replacement for the Woodbury County WCICC data center. The data center is currently fed emergency power through the law enforcement center across the street. As we know, that building at some point will be shuttered, and so now is the time to start looking into the future and completing a project for that emergency power replacement. So I'm asking approval of $32,500 to do the design and design plans and specifications. That cost does include structural engineering and architectural fees.
So do we have an idea what it's going to cost to, or do you have that, John?
Project estimate for the generator, my project estimate for that is $250,000, plus we'll probably be asking for a contingency fee, so we're probably looking in the area of $295,000 for the project.
Is this all county expense on this, or this is the shared? It's all county. Okay.
This would be a county expense. And speaking with Dennis, it would probably come out of 2022 unallocated CIP funds.
Okay. So this wasn't budgeted for necessarily?
It actually,
Oh, it's out of CIP funds, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
CIP funds, meaning that we set a placeholder for it when we were doing the budget, or there's projects that we did not do that we can otherwise, I mean, what's the bottom line for us?
Because of the bidding process, when we budgeted for the demolition of the Prairie Hills facility out there, we had budgeted $1 million. We borrowed it at a cheap interest rate. We have used up, I think, $250,000, maybe up to $300 for equipment, electronic that's going out to the LEC. So we do have enough to cover this. We'll still have about $100,000 left to reallocate. We do this by a couple of public hearings where we do a reallocation of funds on hand. So yes, we do have the funds on hand.
So we didn't have it in the CIP, but we're going to cover it with,
I think,
I put a placeholder in this.
okay,
We did.
okay.
we actually did have.
Okay, that's what I was just getting at, and I think you were
So from a,
asking the same
yeah, so
thing.
from a tax standpoint, we aren't increasing anything that we didn't already previously have in CIP funds. Is that?
funds
That's
are
what-
on hand. We don't have to borrow the money. It's already been done.
Okay, thank you.
I'll move 11A.
I'll second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Taylor. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. 11B. Thank you, John. Approved Sioux City Engineer Company's 28th Street paving project contract, change order number 3.
Thank you. This is for the 28th Street paving project, approval of change order number 3. Change order number 3 has two related items. When the connection was made from 28th Street to Outer Drive, some riprap installation was needed there at that connection. That is part of this. The other larger part of it is driveway entrances to 3 farm drive entrances or different properties. And so farmers are able to access their properties who have cattle in these areas. And I have with me today Gordon Fair with the City of Sioux City and Shane Albrecht, who would be willing to come up and answer questions that you might have relating to these items.
I'm just kind of curious why these were incorrect the first time around.
Shane and Gordon, would you come up?
Hi, Gordon Fair, City of Sioux City, I'm the city engineer.
Shane Albrecht, Baker Group, I'm the owner's rep.
Why it was missed was engineer's error of the design. They raised the road 4 feet, and when doing so, they didn't take into account the actual slope of the driveway to get into the property owner's property.
Why was it raised 4 feet? Is it just because it's being paved over gravel?
No, not necessarily, no. It was for to provide for the drainage, clearance for the drain pipes, water and sewer, and for the geometrics of the street, site distance and such.
So would there be a fallback since that was missed in engineering under their contract?
This would be a Shane question.
So I would say you could look at it as an error or an omission. The problem is mistakes happen, everybody makes them, and this isn't a great enough percentage, we're not talking enough dollars, that you can actually take that clause into consideration under most things. It normally, and Joshua's legal counsel here, but normally to fault an error or omission, it would have to be a blatant thing or over
like
10%
Yep.
of the cost of the project. This is neither one of those. This is a mistake, an error. It's not a blatant thing of that nature. So even though that sounds like something you could go back at them, it's in the.
I was just curious, I can't remember what the threshold was, but now that, yeah, I remember the 10% on the city.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, what dollar amount we looking at here roughly?
The whole thing is $27,000, but $6,000 of that is the riprap piece. So it's roughly $21,000 for these driveways.
$27,069.
Is the total dollar amount, but of that $6,000 was the riprap cost for North Outer Drive.
As much as I don't like mistakes and paying for them, I'll move approval.
Second. Motion by DeWitt, second by Raddick. Any discussion?
Just one quick question. We still have some sort of placeholder in terms of change orders, contingency, however you want to call it, that isn't used up yet. Would that be accurate?
No. So right now, the city has been paying for some of these change orders. Some of these, when they're Mid-American change, of the 169 that we just approved last week, the city has responsibility. That was part of the MOU.
Yes.
So when we talk about that.
For the Mid-American improvements for their property, yes, those were funneled through us.
Well, when we originally put this project in and approved it, it went over the city's, the overall cost of the project was over the city's 2.8 that they're reimbursing us for. So there was a CIP project of roughly, I think, $400,000. Dennis, we put a placeholder in for that.
Yeah, we put 401,000 on the ARPA sheets I gave you. We did put that at the bottom as potential payouts. That covers our overage, and it is allowable through the sewer and water and the fiber optics. So whatever we do go over the 2.8 million, we can justify enough money to those two projects to cover the additional costs.
So ARPA is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And to further answer your question, Jeremy, we are pretty much on target with the original
Estimate of what we told everybody this project was gonna cost.
Okay.
We're still on target for that original estimate.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving on to reports on committee meetings. Rocky? Jeremy?
Just to please the board, meeting with our county engineer, Mark Nara, and the city of Sioux City, Jeff Hansen, just to talk about Elk Creek, that development, and any sort of county, city cooperation as regards that area. May I ask if you could attend to, Mr. Chairman, and then report back to the board on discussions, so just for the transparency and good of the board.
So when do you have that lined up?
If 3 o'clock works next week, that would be great.
What day of the week?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah. Let me see
Mark's
if,
still here.
He is.
where are we meeting at?
To be determined, I'll let you know.
Okay, with city. 3. All right, so was that the extent of yours there?
That's it.
All right. Either you guys? All right, I'm trying to go back here and see, we had Simcoe exec meeting. It was a Correctionville, oh, I did a farm tour out in Correctionville. Actually, a few of you guys are there, a few others. I was just checking out a confined cattle facility, seeing some of the modern techniques used. Seems like maybe the future in cattle farming as far as using acres. Obviously, it takes a little bit of money to build a facility of that size. It was a neat experience. Item 13, citizen concern round 2.
Daniel here, Hornick, Iowa. I just had something I'd like to point out. I believe it's Mr. Jablonski. Is that what it is? Of Urbandale? Okay. Here's a population density map of Woodbury County. And right down here, this is where I live, right here. Now, I know you guys have some map floating around out there that shows your little project for Mid-America turbines right up in here. Well, I got news for you. There's other companies such as NextEra and I believe Invenergy, and they're out here with a wind turbine test tower site measuring wind speed and atmospheric conditions right over here, just a couple miles from my house, right on top of a Luss Hill. So for you guys to say that the Luss Hills are off limits, that might be your little sacred cow argument there, but that doesn't mean these other companies aren't coming in and trying to put them right on top of the Luss Hills. You can deny, having anything to do with them, but that's the facts of life. And so, if we don't stop this.
Mr. Chairperson, this item was on the agenda.
This is a citizen concern to read.
It's done. I'm sorry, I'm just enforcing the rules.
Okay, well, I'm just letting you know I had to respond to some inaccurate information that I have information for the board to hear. Okay, that's it. Just wanted to make that known that there are other companies out there wanting to build right on the Luss Hills. Thank you.
And that's unfortunately too big to receive into the public record.
I understand.
Pat's scanner is,
I can put it back here if he wants to see it.
Anything that is not on the agenda that is a concern? Board concerns?
Not so much a concern, but just to end on a positive note, the Woodbury County Fair did go to their supervisors and elected officials night, and great fair and a lot of great work that a lot of people do. So thank you to the Fair Board and the county support of it.
You guys have anything? I don't have anything either. We're adjourned.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, Mayor, hard to talk now. When are we gonna park out here? You were talking to me. Okay, all right. I don't, did they get all, I had two. Did they get all the stuff based out? I don't even go look, Mark. I'm better off to stay away. No reason to. Well, I don't know what it is.
What's the planning gonna do about it, right?
Well, no, and I do appreciate the lady that said that she appreciates.
You can't keep everybody for now.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was your own guy, so. Remember enough sign fees.
Yeah, actually, we had just as many this week. Yeah, and COVID's going around pretty bad, where there's a lot of people staying away because they just don't want to go.
And what I'm referring to when I say, when you put these people's homes in that, you're forcing them to accept that. And I don't think that legally, you can make, regardless of what the statistics would be by divorce. So that's, so again, it's perspective. Let me do this. Sorry. Yeah, he wants to get us locked
I
up.
know.
Out of here.
No worries. I think you were going to take a small step back, actually. Right. We turn this way. I'm gonna try. Like, not all the way. I'm trying to see what's going on with the glare on your glasses. Yeah.
You know what, maybe I could clean it up a little bit.
Would that be okay? You want to clean them? I thought you said take them off.
Sometimes you get more of a glare because they're filthy.
Yeah, unfortunately, also this light's so bright. So here, we're gonna get this thing going for you. Alrighty, you kind of know how these things start already. So let's start from the top. First of all, you can say first, last name, your title, but we'll start off as well. Just give us a quick overview of what was going on during today's meeting.
So Keith Raddick, Woodbury County Chair, Board of Supervisors, and today we were discussing the second reading of the wind energy ordinance and hearing a lot of concerns about whether or not we should move the setbacks further out to say 2,500 feet from the 1,250 what they currently are. We also had some that were concerned that they already had contracts and that we would be taking those and basically ripping them up because they would have been within that 2,500 feet. So we had maybe 7 or 8 hands up for keeping the ordinance at the 1,250 and the rest of the room, which would have been probably 30, 40 hands that want us to expand that to 2,500 feet.
Got you. Really quick, off topic. I was actually counting how many people were sitting, and I lost track after 80.
Oh, okay.
So there was actually a lot of people because I was trying to
Yeah,
figure
I
out how
have
many
no
people.
clue.
There were a ton of people that were packed through the sides and the back. But either way, yeah, there was a glaring majority that was in favor of pushing it back. Yeah, exactly. So just the seating wise. So yeah, there was a glaring majority of people who do want to see the pushback and everything. Just kind of
same position of a property right for somebody, if they have the land to put a windmill, they're approached and want to put one on there, I feel it should be their right. Others, I think it's their view that, the safety side, it should be further over 2,000, maybe 2,500 feet away to be as safe as possible, for any neighboring landowner.
Really quick, for my knowledge, the 3-2 vote that you guys had today was just to have the third hearing, or was it to continue?
That approved, so today's vote was to approve the second reading and move it on to the third. And after the third reading, whatever's done is gonna be the code moving forward for Woodbury County.
Gotcha, so during the third meeting is when you guys are gonna essentially make that final decision?
Correct, so the third and final vote is, next week on Tuesday, so if anybody, of course, wants to voice anything else that hasn't been heard or hasn't been said, you got a week to do it, and, next Tuesday at 4:30 is the board meeting if you'd like to come. Even just see it live, it's an interesting process.
Right, and I'm sure that this is a pretty straightforward, obvious question, but I still want to ask it in the context of this specifically. You have a room full of almost 100 people, really, hearing different opinions, people on one side, other side, different sides. Talk to me from the board's perspective, just how important it is for you guys to be able to hear these sort of, opinions and gather all this information, these letters and stuff like that. Why that's important to hear the community out on this.
It's actually great to get a response. Usually we have meetings and nobody shows up, ever. What's interesting is we could have budget meetings and have nobody show up. So I'm always, floored to see that, we could have a $60 million budget and nobody seems to want to have a say in it. But when it comes to something like this, there's overwhelming interest in it. So I would just encourage people to show up for everything that, say, the county or the city or local government does, because this impacts your life directly. Typically, you see what happens on C-SPAN in Washington, D.C., and, somebody in Washington, D.C. is much less likely to hear you out, really legitimately, like somebody at a local level would. So if you have a concern, if you want to come make your point, you can do it at local government.
Gotcha. Alrighty, well, at this point, is there anything else you'd like to add that I haven't covered, or maybe about, anything else that's pertinent? We're good. Alright, I think we are good. Alrighty.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
For sure.
Uh-oh, somebody lost their water bottle, unless that's yours.
I did not bring a water bottle with me, so sounds like somebody did indeed.